I'm founder and CEO of Crealytics.
What constitutes for the ad tech industry a great success is looked upon by the consumer as a violation of privacy. So I don't know where this is going to net out.
In the end, the spooky ads problem will not go away this way. And we haven't solved the core problem.
How has Alibaba managed to maintain the user experience even at 40% ad load or 40% of the revenue coming from ads?
We have to pay twice. We have to pay to be listed, and we have to pay to be seen. And this is the new reality.
All of these retailers and saying, hey, there's Instacart. Even if you guys do 5% in ads, you're going to double your EBITDA.
Google didn't grow the ad revenues by driving the CPCs up. They grew the ad revenues by bringing the CPC down. But what happens if we have independent AI assistants that shop across different retailers? And this would mean that the storefront would lose. I'm invested into a DTC company, and they're really impressed how well TikTok has brought TikTok Shop to market.
One of the fastest growing and the hardest topics in digital advertising today is retail media. And on our pod today, we have one of the OGs of retail media, Andreas, the CEO and founder of Crealytics, the world's first supply-side retail media platform. What other retailers need to do to catch up to Amazon, and what Amazon needs to do to catch up to Alibaba in the retail media space. We talk about the future of AI in retail, and Andreas tells me there could be a future without any storefronts. If you're a marketer investing in retail media in the digital advertising industry or a retailer, you don't want to miss this. Catch the whole podcast on YouTube. Welcome to the Lost Party Cookie, the podcast where we discuss the future of digital advertising, big tech, and marketing for those in tech but are not techies. I'm your host, Sandeep Ramesh, ad sales leader, marketer, and investor. Thank you, Andreas, for joining us. It is a pleasure to have you here. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm currently in our Berlin office, but I'm almost on my way back to Brooklyn where I live. So Monday, I have a flight and will spend the remainder of November, of almost the whole year in New York.
We should get a drink when you're in Brooklyn for sure. But for now, I'm happy to get you on online even when you're in Berlin. That's great. No, it's not Oktoberfest. So we are way past Oktoberfest. So this is getting into winter now.
Yes, it's actually getting very dark and cold here.
I don't have too much good news for you, and you're back in Brooklyn though, so it's the same here. Amazing. So before we start, I'd love for you to first talk about what you do to our viewers, what you do, and what your company that you founded, what do they do specifically, and then we can get into many other things.
Yeah, so I'm founder and CEO of Crealytics, leading the company at the moment. I moved to the US in 2016 to build our US business. I'm dividing and conquering with my COO, who's based in Berlin. So I'm mostly in charge of everything product, marketing, and sales, while finance and our service delivery department and our BI is managed by Markus Kirch, our COO. What Crealytics does is essentially two things. We have a legacy performance marketing business with a strong tech component on the measurement side around incrementality and marketing mix modeling. That's one part of our business. And the other part is retail media, where we bring a supply side platform for sponsored products and soon also display to the market. And this is still a little bit smaller, but it's the fastest growing part of our business.
So if I can simplify it, your customers are retailers and you help them monetize their inventory through retail media ads. The simplest way to put it?
Exactly. So target audience is always retail. We exclusively only work with retailers. On the one side of our business, we help them acquire traffic in a very smart way. And on the other side of our business, we help them monetize that traffic more effectively, which again helps on the acquisition side.
That's interesting. Lots of questions are running in my head basis what you said, but I'm going to stop myself and let's start from the beginning. Everyone has great memories of their childhood. I want to know, where did you grow up? What memories do you have of your childhood? And is there anything specifically that you can remember from your childhood that you think influenced a lot of the ways that you are right now?
Yeah, so I grew up in a very small town in the south of Germany, and many of my childhood memories are around tennis because I started to play tennis when I was 6, I think. And then what started as a hobby became something quite serious. So I really got deep into tennis and had the ambition to at some point become a professional tennis player. So I remember I must have been like maybe 12 or 13 that my tennis trainer by then picked me up at 5:30 in the morning before school. He took me to the tennis court. We played tennis for an hour. I remember it was, of course, you can imagine, as that early, it was completely empty. There was nobody else playing tennis. So I showered and took my bike to school. And this is something we did like almost every day during that time. And it actually shaped me quite a bit because becoming a professional tennis player means you have to be very, very disciplined and you require long-term thinking, and you have to train all aspects that you need for the game. And yeah, I think professional sports and business are not so different. And let's reverse this. It's interesting because many successful business people were somehow successful in sports. And I think the common denominator is you have to be very, very ambitious and also disciplined. And that's something that I really remember from my
I can totally relate on two aspects. One aspect is that I'm old enough to remember that I started watching tennis because of Boris Becker. And then I through the 90s, grew up watching Steffi Graf. So you have really good, I don't know what's happened to German tennis, but I know in the 80s and 90s, the German tennis was right at the top. Michael Stich as well, right? Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, there was a big tennis boom driven by Boris Becker and Steffi Graf. So you now you see their legacy because you have like bowling courts. Formerly there were tennis courts, and there was such a huge hype, and of course it somehow normalized and slowed down. But it was exactly that point of time when I also started playing tennis.
Great. I want to move in a little bit to your career and how you came about where you are. But specifically, was there one point early on in your career or a turning point, which sort of snowballed into you becoming a co-founder or a founder of a company like Crealytics? Was there any turning point or anything that you can remember?
Yeah, I think it was rather a series of different events. It started probably when I was 17, still with the ambition to make tennis my profession, and I had a very bad season, didn't play as well, and I got seriously frustrated. And then I made the decision to not further pursue this on a professional level. And it was simply like evaluating the odds of, what does it mean to actually fully bet on playing tennis? And it was clear you have to be in the top 20 to 50 worldwide to make a decent money. And rather, if you belong to the top, 10,000 entrepreneurs, you're probably much better off. So I decided to quit tennis, at least my ambitions to play on a professional level. And at some point when during my studies, during university, what do? You do internships, and I was desperately looking for something that would excite me. And my internships at larger corporate companies rather turned me off. And I realized I just don't want to do this. Like being just a tiny element in this big game where my influence is limited. I didn't want to do it. And I still remember all my friends, they are saying, hey, Andreas, it's crazy with you because when you were 15, you always told us you wanted to found a company. And then at some point you did it. So I did an internship at a company in South Africa and learned paid search, essentially, how to run large-scale paid search campaigns. And when they made me a pretty bad job offer, I decided, well, let's do this by myself. So we started through affiliate networks, clicked to apply for different affiliate programs, invested my pocket money and made commissions, and at some point figured out how to do it, scaled it up, and founded Crealytics. So that's essentially
that's quite an amazing story. I love this sort of career arc that you just mentioned. But tell me, what specifically on your job right now, what would you think are the two things that, or the one thing that you would tell someone who's starting a company right now that you would have told yourself, well, if you had the chance to, like one piece of advice?
Don't work too much on problems as they come up. I mean, you have two options. You can work in your business and work hard to tackle all the different things as they come up. Oh yeah, we have an issue with one client and we have to win your business here and there, and spend all your time on this. Versus, and that's what I started to do much later in my career, actually a couple of years ago, I carve out a lot of time to learn and develop, and I pick topics that generally interest me and try to educate myself and become just broaden my horizon and become better at what I'm doing. So reading books about behavioral psychology, or reading books about, what else did I read? Like Ray Kurzweil, The Singularity is Near, to understand where we're heading with AI. And I think you have the biggest long-term ROI if you keep investing into your knowledge. It's a compounding effect. And I would call it delayed gratification. You invest something today, but you don't see an immediate impact. But on the long run, it will pay off. And I just didn't see this in the early days of my career.
That's a good point. The LTV of of your efforts right now. That's a great point. Before getting deep into retail media and what you do, immigrant to immigrant, what's your experience been in the US from coming from Germany, the good and the bad?
So there's a reason why I'm still there. It was supposed to be a short-term thing for 6 months.
Okay.
I kind of fell in love with the city and stayed over a longer time. Have lots of friends now over there. Feels like home to me, so I really very much like it.
Do you like Brooklyn or Manhattan?
No,
are you a Brooklyn person or Manhattan person?
I'm a Brooklynite.
I guess as much. So you like the Brooklyn part of New York?
I very much like the Brooklyn part of New York. I wouldn't like to live in the city. It's too commercial, too loud, too noisy. But I really enjoyed on the Brooklyn side. And it was very interesting also when it comes to business. And most people told me, forget everything you've learned. Everything is different. And I wouldn't subscribe to this. I do feel it's a different style when you sell. You have to, the message is a little bit bolder. You have to be a little bit more self-confident and more bullish when you sell something. But in the end, core aspects are very similar. People buy from people they really like and trust. People don't want to be sold. So you have to be it's appreciated if you're also honest and admit certain weaknesses. If somebody wants to buy from us and we feel we are just not the best partner, it makes sense to also mention this. So there are lots of things that aren't too different, that are rather, if you understand human nature, it's pretty much the same. But on the surface, you have to adapt quite a bit, and you have to also understand what it means when an American says "awesome." It not necessarily means that it's awesome. But I learned a lot, and I enjoy the energy people in the big city have.
That is that I would say is one of the most critical elements if you're not with an employer. But all right, so let's get into retail media itself, right? Can you actually go to your retailer and say, "This is your cost of acquisition. This is how much I'm helping you monetize. This is a no-brainer for you. This is a great arbitrage to work for." Is that something you guys do?
You know, there are examples where we do handle both sides of the business, and there is some overlap in the end, because the better you monetize a website, the more you can also spend on the acquisition side. In many instances, it's just totally different groups within those large corporates, and we just run one part of the business. Especially when we come in on the retail media side, it's a very innovative piece of technology. There's very little competition in this specific space. The industry is rather immature. So we oftentimes find a situation where performance marketing is fully built out in-house already. So we purely focus on the retail media side, with some exceptions where we actually started on the performance marketing side, and as we build out our retail media capabilities, we also brought them in.
Yeah, because the reason I say that is because let's say a company like Amazon today, for example, can run a reasonably good arbitrage system because they can use Google search, they can get customers at a certain cost per click, but their cost per clicks are far more expensive, maybe 3 or 4 times, or the sponsored searches there. There's a good arbitrage that you can run, provided you can track users pretty well. So that's why I asked you if that's a good model too.
Yeah, in the end, the question is, if you acquire traffic through performance marketing, there's a certain cost per click you can afford, which has something to do how capable you are to translate clicks into revenue, or even if you think long-term CLV. And if you now take Amazon as an example, for every $10 they make in retail revenue or marketplace revenue, they make one additional dollar through selling ads. So you can actually bid 10% higher or be 10% more aggressive, which gives you more reach.
Yeah,
and that's
fair
part
enough.
of
I
the
mean, I
game.
can think of many other innovative ways you can optimize, but yeah, that's a fair assessment. Let's start with an helicopter view, right? Retail media. I've read many reports on how 2027, 2028, it's going to hit $100 billion in the US. It's about 35, 40, whichever way you look at it. My question to you is that, what do you think are the headwinds and tailwinds that can either take it beyond that 100 billion or make it fall short? Like, what can potentially happen that can derail this trend, or what can happen that can even push it even further?
Why is this growing so fast? Let's
Yeah.
maybe start from this angle. And in my opinion, what we are seeing is a fundamental shift in how you operate a retail business. In former times, you bought products, put them in a warehouse, and you made a margin by then selling them. So you had this one revenue stream. Alibaba they mostly had a marketplace business, but then they started selling ads. And all of a sudden, they opened up this second revenue stream. It didn't take too long until Amazon started copying this. And if you simply analyze the inner workings of the flagship product that drives all this, which is clearly sponsored products, then you realize it's a much smarter mechanism to extract rent from the marketplace participants. What I mean with this is you have two options. You can raise your marketplace fees. Let's say you charge a commission in electronics of 10% and you raise that to 15%. The downside of this is, as you do this, some players will drop out because they have already highly thin margins. So this mechanism isn't very effective. The ad mechanism means every individual player on the whole platform that makes a profit now can individually reinvest a part of this profit into ads. So it's a very efficient mechanism to extract rent from your retail partners or marketplace sellers. Hence, it's a superior business model to couple marketplace fees, retail margin with an advertising revenue stream. And this means everyone else is now following and trying to replicate this. To some extent, the dynamics of such a market, in my opinion, will be different from other markets because it's a choice. If you take Amazon as an example, they could have generated much more revenue on the retail and marketplace side without pushing the advertising business as much. With a rise of the ad business, you can see how the marketplace or the overall seller fees in the ecosystem also increase. So you can just charge so much money, but on the other side, this still needs to work out and be somehow accretive. So you can decide how you split those two revenue streams. And Alibaba, they took a much more extreme approach. They went for 40% roughly of their e-com revenue is advertising, and the rest, the other 60, come from other things like marketplace fees. So Amazon can, of course, go into that direction and keep increasing the penetration of sponsored products, show more and more sponsored products, and raise the fees, or basically generate more revenue on the advertising side. But this means they somehow then need to be very cautious and moderate on the other side of the business. Otherwise, it won't work out for the brands.
Really interesting. A lot of follow-up questions on this. So the first point is that isn't there a trade-off when you're making the ads, when you're increasing the ads business on user experience, and therefore a potential decline in revenues because of bad user experience? So that's one argument in favor of just seller fees compared to advertising. Second is, how has Alibaba managed to maintain the user experience even at 40% ad load or 40% of their revenue coming from ads? How have they maintained their user experience?
So first of all, those two businesses, advertising and retail, they're intertwined and interdependent. They are not separate businesses with the one business affecting the other one and vice versa. So in the end, the media revenues, of course, are a function of the e-com revenues. If Amazon keeps massively growing their e-com business, they have better chances to monetize or to drive the ad revenues as well. The other problem is if you just clutter everything with ads, intrusive ads that people don't really want to see, you might see your ad revenues ramping up. But if people no longer really find what they are looking for, you can very easily damage the retail side of your business. And one of the reasons why we have such a big gap today between Amazon in the US, they make, I think it's around about 11% of their e-com revenues is media now. Most others are rather on the 1% side. So in absolute terms, it's a world of a difference. But let's take just relative terms. So in relative terms, Amazon is 10x better than many others. And this has something to do that it's very dangerous if you have a massive retail business and now your ads don't really perform. I did the math once for Target.com. If their sponsor products, let's say they bring in 300 million, makes round about a 250 million in pure margin. Target, I think it's a 20 billion e-com business. If you assume like a average basket size of $75, you get to a number which is, if those sponsor products drag down the site conversion rate by only 7%, you destroy more money on the retail side, more margin on the retail side than what you actually make through running those sponsor products. So intrusive ads bear a big risk, and Amazon has actually figured out how to make their sponsor products in most instances equally relevant compared to their organic products. And Alibaba, with even a higher penetration of sponsor products, similar. In the end, you still run a retail business and you still inherent most important task is give users what they want to buy and drive transactions. And any ad that interferes with this is very dangerous and should actually be avoided.
So you're telling me, this is really fascinating, because if I look at any retailer in the US today, right, nobody is safe. When I mean safe, I'm talking about private equity guys, because private equity is looking at all of these retailers and saying, hey, there's Instacart that's doing 30% of its revenues in ads. There's Amazon that's sitting at 10% in ads. Even if you guys do 5% in ads, you're going to double your EBITDA, and then your business is going to transform itself. So there's going to be huge pressure on retailers that don't have a great ads business, e-commerce players that don't have a great ads business, to get to a great ads business without impacting their, the user experience. So the big sort of differentiator in this is literally the ads experience. And it's amazing how not many people have, or not many retailers or not many folks have cracked this as yet. It seems to be such a simple thing that can unlock humongous amount of value.
Yeah, if you take a top-down look at the US market, it's 78% is Amazon, 78%. And within Amazon, we always talk about, it's video and offsite and this and that. It's 75% is simply sponsored products, and that's the monetization mechanism I mentioned. It's introducing a second revenue stream. If you don't bid, people won't find you any longer. And the relevancy piece is key to success. In my opinion, there are much better ways of handling this, of guaranteeing a smooth user experience than what we do today. And let me explain. Today, most companies have decided to operate the ad business and the retail business in silos. Means you have, Amazon is working on it's called Project Nile. It's an AI project to improve the user experience and personalization. So what will happen there? They make a ton of progress in being even better of identifying the customer's need and showing them the right products, while their other silo, this ad business, won't see those relevancy improvements. And now we have a trade-off. Oftentimes now it's better to just show the organic product because the likelihood that you convert users is higher there. So the question we need to ask ourselves, why don't we leverage what we have already built to show the right products to the right users at the right point of time, and use this intelligence on the personalization and search side for both paid and organic, instead of, again, we are trying to solve for the same problem, don't we? We have organic and want to show relevant products, and we have paid. Why are we building two separate, distinct silos, two distinct worlds? There's a smarter way, in my opinion, of how you can tackle the problem, which is, in the end, the whole ranking in a retail environment is already based on commercial KPIs. What goes into the ranking? It's a click-through rate on the products. It's a conversion rate on the products. Ideally, if the system is smart, you take a margin into account, you factor return rates in, and then you list products in a way so that they are ordered in a descending way. The one that is supposed to give you the highest margin per click or per impression ranks first, and then the list goes down. So now enter media and sponsored products. We have a second revenue stream. So a product that now sits at the bottom of the page and has a huge bid actually generates more money, but it's not reflected in the ranking. It makes sense to lift this product to higher positions because it will yield better results for the retailer, and it deserves to rank higher. In this case, we have baked all the AI and the whole intelligence into the ranking of a sponsored product, and a bid becomes a ranking factor of this whole thing. And that's a robust way and a methodology you can apply that is much more future-proof and will always carry through all AI improvements, and it's not a siloed approach. And we've seen a much better performance among our clients applying this kind of methodology than trying to basically replicate the relevancy scoring algorithms in a very simplistic way that won't live up to what is being done already on the other side of the business.
Google has written the playbook on this already. Google search has consistently increased ad load over a period of time, and they've managed to make sure that relevancy is still very high. So they've always defaulted on the relevancy versus the bid. If you have a bad website, you can't outbid a bad website. So I think there's learnings to be taken from Google.
Google has written the retail media playbook, although they are not a retail media actor. What Google did, I still remember, it was probably in 2006 or something. Google was just a few text ads on the right side rail. And what Google then did is, at some point, I still remember, we were in our affiliate business, they decided to pull one of those text ads to the top of the page. Then there were two, and then there were three on top of the page. And in 2014, Google realized, well, people searching for products, they actually don't want to see text ads, but they want to see images. So they basically started their Google Shopping PLA business, but they only made it available for paid, but they never had organic listings also being images. So essentially what Google did over time, if you look at Google today, above the fold for commercial searches, 100% is paid. So in essence, and this is the counterintuitive piece here, what Google did and what Amazon is replicating right now, Google didn't grow the ad revenues by driving the CPCs up. They grew the ad revenues by bringing the CPC down. If you look at the timeline over 10 years, in 9 out of the 10 years, the CPC went down. And the only exception was the COVID year. But if you look at the volume of paid clicks, it grew every single year and massively overcompensated the deflation impact of the CPCs.
But the way the ad industry works on a budget, right? So when you get lower CPCs, people put in more money and you take in more shares. So the volume is a function of the fact that you're reducing your CPCs.
If you decrease the CPCs, you increase the ROI, you make an investment more attractive. It was just in the silo paid. It went better and better and better and better over the years. If you took the whole thing, SEO, free, non-paid clicks, they almost went away. So the traffic volume you could get on that side decreased drastically. So Google's approach was make everything an ad, massively increase the supply of available ads, which then leads to a deflation of clicks, but the massive volume overcompensates this. And if you now look at Amazon, initially right side rail, then a few sponsored products popped up in the middle. So today, and we have a report we're actually gonna publish soon, where you can see how many sponsored products Amazon and other retail media networks are running. And Amazon is at around about 20% today. So in 2 years, this will be 50%. And it will go up with the same similar thing. They will try to keep the CPC stable, but transform formerly organic clicks into paid clicks and just grow this to the level where Alibaba is, the 40% or something.
So this is interesting, right? There's $100 billion in retail media. This has to come, it has to come from somewhere, right? And my question to you is that, will companies start looking at retail media, especially sponsored products, as cost of doing business, which means that they will apportion a part of their margins to this? Or will retail media then suck in money from television and other upstream, top of the funnel media vehicles, and sort of take money from there because it's genuinely media? Because if you are going to a Walmart and if you put up a gondola or a shelf, take a shelf space, then you pay Walmart that money. So where is this money going to come from?
It's a very good question, and it's probably going to be both. It's a weird animal, retail media, because it has an ROI component. So I invest my money because I get a return out of this. To some extent, it also has a relationship component. So if you want to keep a healthy, good relationship with your important retail partners, you are well advised to also spend money on ads. Let me maybe take a slightly different perspective, and we have to ask ourselves, on the individual level, of course, it makes a lot of sense to get your advertising right. And if you play this game better than others, you get a comparable advantage compared to your competitors. But collectively, what happens on Amazon is, of course, if everyone starts aggressively going into the ad game, nobody will have more or less reach than before. So we all spend money, but there is just limited space. So it's clearly the rules of the game have changed. And to say this in a very unemotional way, it's simply brands need to adapt to a world where there will be a cost of advertising. And there are great opportunities to handle this environment in a smarter and better way than others. There won't be any way back. We have to pay twice. We have to pay to be listed, and we have to pay to be seen. And this is the new reality.
There's going to be, if I look at where the money is going to come from, there's going to be a bunch of folks who, brands, for example, they have a certain amount of money to play around with. They're not going to they might reduce their margins a little bit, but they're not going to reduce their margins too much, just because Amazon's the only game in town. So they have a certain amount of money to play around with. So I actually think in the beginning, they're going to pull out money from other media to a certain extent till they realize that the brands aren't being built. There's no incrementality. There are other issues that are coming up, and then it'll go back. So this is going to be interesting because the first few dollars are going to come from television, which is the most likely candidate to suck money in from.
I mean, there's clearly also the whole development on the privacy and regulation side, where with cookies going away is definitely favoring retail media, where you have access to a retailer side first party data. Um, it's very obvious that this also is one of the reasons why this starts scaling up. There is more and more happening on offsite advertising as well. So it's a hybrid. It's to some extent it's of course drives up the cost of doing business. On the other side, it's a more effective way of also reaching your audiences. And yeah, that's probably the reason why it's it got so much scale and is currently the fastest growing thing in ad tech.
You mentioned privacy, and the reason this podcast is called the Lost Party Cookie is essentially because I feel that consumers don't understand some of these terminologies of first party and third party, and they're kind of lost in this. But I'll tell you this: today, if an advertiser wants to reach you on Hulu, for example, on CTV, and says, "I want to reach people who have bought Pantene in the last 18 months," a trade desk could technically have a collaboration with Walmart Connect and be able to reach people on Hulu or Roku who do that, and that is considered privacy safe, or that is considered kosher. Like, so I want people to know that far beyond what their understanding of privacy is, the industry is coming up with its own definitions of what first party and third party and what privacy safe is. But that's why this podcast is called what it is.
You know, in essence, people didn't want to see spooky ads. My mother didn't understand why ads were following her. And I think the general sentiment in our societies is we don't want to give away our data to have shady companies targeting us with ads without us understanding where this is coming from and why it's possible. So the regulator said, let's prevent this from happening, and people have to provide consent. Otherwise, they're not being retargeted. Now, cookies going away. What the ad industry and also retail media industry is now doing, we find some sneaky bypass to actually play the same game again. And now we use email hashes as unique identifier. And in the end, the spooky ads problem will not go away this way. And we haven't solved the core problem. I mean, everything that happens in a retail environment on a retailer's side, that's fine. You can render your pages and sort your ranking in the way you want. But people have no way to control that consent. So my concern is going forward, how long will this be around? Because the European regulators will see that in the core, the same problem is going to re-emerge. And yeah, it feels like a cat and mouse game where we just find new hacks to bypass.
But if you ask a marketer, they will say that is success because we know exactly who we're targeting and how we're going behind. So what constitutes for the ad tech industry a great success is looked upon by the consumer as a violation of privacy. So I don't know where this is going to net out, how we are going to have a win-win. I don't know. But that's why this podcast is called the Lost Party Podcast. You have a really good vantage point to look at three different kinds of people working, and you can add more if there are three different types of retail media networks. One, the retailers who have the Walmart, the Krogers of the world, who have an existing loyalty program. They can do the one thing that e-commerce folks cannot, which is that they can link their absolute offline purchases to retail media, and they can do attribution. There are lots of advantages, but they don't have an advantage in tech. They have a long way to go to build the kind of tech that marketplaces have. And then there are marketplaces, the likes of Amazon and Instacart, that are tech first, do not have their own offline businesses, but they are tech first, and they're sort of building their business pretty strongly. And then there are now newer entrants to the retail media network, which are commerce media, the likes of Uber and DoorDash, which are also building up their retail media platforms, etc. So my question to you is that who do you think are going to be the winners and losers, if there are losers at all, but who are going to be the folks who are going to win this battle 5 years, 10 years down the line?
I think they all have good chances to coexist. I don't think that will be the one or another. I'm getting back to my initial point. It's a new way of doing business in retail and e-com, and the new normal will be to have to diversify your revenue stream and have a high margin revenue stream from advertising. The Krogers of this world, I think they have a massive opportunity when it comes to in-store and somehow monetizing their by far larger audience they have in stores, and that's not yet fully exploited. It won't be as efficient as an Amazon. They won't get the same amount of an in-store offline user than what Amazon extracts from an online user, but it's a massive audience reach they have. Then you mentioned those e-com pure play marketplaces. They are set up already with a business model that is geared towards generating higher margins, more tech driven. So advertising perfectly plays into this. There are also some who start selling enabling technology on the fulfillment side, on the shop system side, getting into the Shopify space. Advertising is just a perfect addition. Interesting enough, the European players, in my opinion, are much more advanced than what we see in the US in that sense. Zalando, European leader in fashion, they went into retail media already, must have been in 2015 or something, with several acquisitions. They had built platform business from the get-go. About You, another European player, similar clear platform approach with an advertising model in place. So those guys, I think they are well set up. And then you mentioned Ubers and DoorDashes. I mean, Uber, they seem to mostly monetize their food delivery business so far. And that's, again, nothing else than a marketplace model, if you like, right? Also, yeah. And a similar thing, rather tech DNA, it just makes a ton of sense to have the second revenue stream for the reasons we already mentioned. So I think they all go into this direction, and it's a must-have for everyone who wants to play this efficiency game going forward.
What about Instacart? Are you bullish on them? Would you invest in their stock right now?
No, but not because I don't believe in Instacart. I just don't invest into individual stocks. I have a different investment strategy. I invest into startups, and I invest into...
No, that's not what I meant. I just meant, are you bullish on Instacart?
I do believe they have a very good business model. They have executed it very well, and I mean, 30% I think you mentioned comes from advertising. It's scalable. It works. It's smart what they do. I think they have done an amazing job in building their tech and also operating it, and have built a whole sales machine, from what I can say, how they sell to the different brands. So it's very, very well executed.
Yeah, so their sales structure is similar to the likes of Google and Facebook. They're an advertising first kind of platform where they have a sales team that goes and sells. But the only question has always been that what if the likes of Kroger and Albertsons, for example, say, we are shutting off our inventory for monetization because we have our own retail media network. So that's the only fear that Instacart would have. But that's the only trade-off that you would want to think about.
Haven't really thought about this kind of risk.
You mentioned Project Nile and AI, and I happened to see one of your videos where you are actually saying that AI might eliminate storefronts. So I'm a big sucker for what AI can do and what the future looks like. But please paint this picture of AI eliminating storefronts. How is that going to happen?
Well, if you think what's going to happen in the next 10 years, it feels that we are now with the AI we have and products like ChatGPT and all the advancements we make almost at a point where machines get smarter than humans. And once we are at this point, we're going to see a drastic increase in the advancements of AI, and it just almost an exponential development on the tech side. So I think there will be a lot of disruption. And if you think about like shopping now is a process where you go to website and you compare your prices and you navigate website A, B, and C, and then you buy something. This is all things a machine can eventually do much better on your behalf. So I'm wondering to what extent we will have AI assistants that help you shopping and are much more efficient in spotting the best price or waiting a few days and then buying it at a lower price point. So the question is, if this AI assistant comes from Amazon itself, then Amazon can again monetize also those AI assistants, and it can be done in the same way I mentioned before. You have 5 products you can recommend to a user, and they might be almost equally relevant, but if somebody is willing to pay, you would just slightly favor this one party. So Amazon could monetize its own AI assistant pretty well, in my opinion. But what happens if we have independent AI assistants that shop across different retailers? And this would mean that the storefront would lose relevance at some point of time, and retailers would eventually become, many of them, more heavy on the logistics side, but less on how they display products to users.
I love this vision. The reason I'm skeptical about this is because in 2016, this was what Alexa was supposed to do. This was their big Trojan horse into people's houses. And Alexa, you could just tell Alexa, fill up the milk, tell us when this is going to happen. This was the big play in Alexa, and now they've literally shut down that smart speaker division itself. So that's my skepticism. But I'm pretty sure at some time, apart from the transaction piece, you can give the AI a set of rules to follow, and it's not very difficult to do that. You don't want it to be spending money on your behalf, but as long as it gives you the final transaction to do, I think those things can be followed. Amazing. This was great. We have only one segment left. It's an interesting, engaging segment. It's basically called Crystal Ball True or False. And I'm just going to give you a set of statements, and you just have to say true or false. It's about the future. So it's a prediction about the future. And you can say true or false. You can also explain why you think so or why you don't think so. Right? So the first question is, Amazon will continue to remain 75% of the retail media market in 2028.
False.
Okay, you think everybody else is going to eat share from them?
I think that their share will go down because the Amazon competitors will learn how to play this game, catch up, and close this huge gap to some extent. And I believe that what we bring to market will help to actually do this. That's why we exist. It can't be that they get 78% as of today.
By 2025, every remote control will have a buy button.
No.
You don't think that's possible, that you can go put on your TV and an ad can come up and you can literally buy it? It's not possible. You don't think that's what's going to happen?
I don't think this is gonna happen in
Okay.
25.
But you think it's going to happen eventually?
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense if we make everything shoppable to buy stuff directly. 25 seems a bit too close, in my opinion.
TikTok Shop will create a big splash in the US market.
True. I I get the impression that they have executed incredibly well. What I see in Southeast Asia is pretty impressive. So they are changing the whole influencer game and bring it much closer to some affiliate model. It's impressive how they have managed to grow their platform, and I think that Meta should be paying a lot of attention to what TikTok is doing. Again, I'm referring to the Southeast Asian market where they are incredibly successful. I'm invested into a DTC company and they are really impressed how well TikTok has brought TikTok Shop to market and how they captured market share from the incumbents. And I do believe they have a great chance to replicate this. Whether the Chinese government and all the doubts around privacy will interfere with this, I don't know. It's certainly not an advantage for them as a business.
Amazon will be the number 2 advertising player in the world by 2030, meaning that they will overtake Facebook this decade. Sorry, what did you say? True or false?
I don't know actually. Never looked in detail into the numbers.
So if you do a straight line,
no.
it looks like they will. If you do a straight line, because they're at about $40 billion today in the US. So if you project it straight line to where Facebook's at only with the social media platform, it looks like they will, but but you're there to make sure it doesn't happen. So you can say false.
False.
My last question is a more fun one. Jeff Bezos will make a comeback at Amazon.
Your question is whether Jeff Bezos will come back? Why do you think so?
Because first you have to tell me true or false. It's a fun question. You can just tell me true or false first, and I'll tell you my reason.
No. I think Jeff is enjoying life now, and he will
I
not
didn't put
come
much
back.
thought into the question, but invariably, people like Jeff, whose identity is based on such competence, can't really sit on a yacht for too long, right? So at some point, he might, always feel like coming back. But it was a fun question anyway, so it wasn't a serious question. All right, my last, I had one more. My last true or false is that there will be I know this is on the buy side, not on the sell side that you are, but there will be a single seamless view of retail media networks on the buy side in the next couple of years, where people could measure ROAS across platforms very easily compared to what it is now.
True. I think there will be a consolidation on the demand side as a brand. It will be possible to put my money into a single DSP and target everyone out there, Amazon and all other retail media networks, and also have some standardized reporting across all of them. It will become much more programmatic and will be much more similar to the broader advertising ecosystems with SSPs and DSPs. And the reason is simply there's so much friction in there today that it's very hard for me as a brand to efficiently spend my money across dozens of tiny walled gardens. And this is one of the reasons the broader retail ecosystem hasn't gotten a fair slice. And every retailer would love to have this one-to-one relationship and get the money directly. But if they continue to enforce this, their overall pie will remain smaller. So I think we will have some, not fully, but some network component which helps to scale this, including the measurement piece you mentioned.
Thank you so much for staying beyond the stipulated time. I had a great time. I've asked all my questions I wanted to ask. All the segments we covered. I had a great time. I hope you did as well.